welcome to worship here at Peace Church. We are so excited that you've joined us this morning, and we're gonna get started in just a few minutes. But before we do, I wanna go over with you some of the amazing things that are happening in the life of our church. You know, Easter is coming up. It's pretty soon. And we are trying to make our sanctuary look as beautiful as possible. And one of the ways that we're doing that is with Easter lilies. And so you can donate to have an Easter lily in honor or in memorial of someone from your life by going to peaceumcgiving.org. You can donate there, and you will be able to even take your Easter lily home with you after Easter Sunday. So check that out, and we would love to make those beautiful lilies appear on Easter. We also have on March 14th at noon, a new member class. So this is a really great opportunity to find out more about our church and about our denomination, and to really become a member of Peace Church and this family that we have here. So you can go to comefindpeace.org, and you can fill out a form there and then join on March 14th to find out more info. And then last but not least, right now we have Breaking Free social media reflections happening every day on Facebook and Instagram. This is a really great way for you during the season of Lent to continue to reflect and connect throughout the week. And so check those out. You can go to our Facebook or our Instagram, Come Find Peace, and find out more. Now, we're gonna get started with worship in just a few seconds. So buckle in, it's gonna be a great morning.
You were the shepherd that carried us home when we were prodigal. You ran to meet us with open arms, and we can't hold back our praise. When we were refugees, you were the one who took us in. When we were enemies, price for all our sins, and we can't hold back our praise. This is the sound of adoration. Oh, how we love you, Jesus, we love you. You are the joy of all creation. Oh, how we love you, Jesus, we love you. You are the risen one. Sing it out with us, church. You are the risen one. You conquered death and made a way. You sang our freedom song. Now we are dancing on our chains, and we can't hold back our praise. Here we go. This is the sound of adoration. Jesus, we love you. You are the joy of all creation. Oh, how we love you. Jesus, we love you. Yes, we do. We love you. now I see your grace changes everything. And by the cross I am free. Your grace changes everything. I was blind, but now I see. Your grace changes everything, everything. This is the sound of adoration. Oh, how we love you, Jesus, we love you. You are the joy of all creation. Oh, how we love you. This is the sound. This is the sound of adoration. Oh, how we love you, Jesus, we love you. You are the joy of all creation. Oh, how we love you, Jesus, we love you. Yes, we do. Amen. Church, let's give the Lord some praise this morning.
Well, good morning. Good morning. It's great to see all of you this morning. We're so glad that we're all gathered together in worship. It's great to see you online and then also to see all of you here in person. My name is Pastor Jim, and it's great to be here. And we've got Jeremy Friedman with us this morning.
Hi, everybody.
2 weeks in a row. How
2 weeks in a
awesome
row.
is that? Wow, the applause, the thunderous applause, Jeremy, for your presence here is just
there we go. Thank
inspiring. Oh my gosh. Hey, real quick, we want to make sure if you're visiting with us for the first time online watching the service, we want to encourage you to go to our website and you can fill out this form that lets us know a little bit about yourself, and then we can tell you a little bit about us in a reply email. And then also for all of us, at some point during the service here, if you feel like God's putting something on your heart, be sure to add to the dialogue that's happening in our live stream. We'd love for you to be a part of that. But Jeremy, we've got week number 2 of our Lent series, Breaking Free, happening today.
Yeah, week number 2 of this interview series that I did a couple of weeks ago with John Welker and Tom Macy, and it connects to what you're going to be preaching about every week, but. Kind of recap if you guys weren't a part of it last Sunday. John and Tom are they're recovering alcoholics, and so what this interview series is going through and having them open up and share with me the steps that they took to recovery. And as we mentioned last week, so John he's a couple of years now sober. Tom is 40 years this year. Last week we talked about powerlessness, which is the first step in the 12-step AA process. This week is taking inventory, and it's essentially taking an inside look at yourselves and seeing what, and humbling yourselves and see what you need to fix, right? So let's take a look.
Hi, I'm John. I'm an alcoholic.
I'm Tom. I'm an alcoholic.
Step 4 in the 12 steps of AA says, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves.
When you give up alcohol, it leaves a hole in you. And something needs to fill that hole. And in order to fill that hole, first of all, you have to know who you are. So you do that by sitting down and writing out your story. And there are different ways you can do it. One of the best ways is make a list of all the resentments you have. But it's got to be honest. One of my friends said, it's cleaning up the wreckage of the past. And that's where you have to go in order to get to the present.
Alcohol is not the issue. A lot of times it's something that's driving the issue. That's just the response.
One of the things that that I've heard over the years and talking to other people about this is there's a sense of humility.
The whole process is a process of opening up. And we want to continue that process of who we are, what we're doing on a daily basis.
It's a very humbling experience, taking personal inventory, that, you know, admitting that these are the things, these are the flaws in my character that I need to work on. And initially it was, you know, a very tedious series of steps. But now I think I do it on a very regular basis. I pray about it all the time.
John, that on that exact point, you said earlier, all of us and everything that we're doing, we constantly need to check ourselves, right?
It starts out as part of the process, but it becomes part of your life.
That's a great phrase, that it's a part of the process, but it becomes part of your life.
So you brought up pride earlier. Mm-hmm. A lot of our wrongs that we commit are based on pride. You know, there's 7 deadly sins we use: pride, greed, lust, anger, gluttony, envy, and sloth. Pride's the first one. Mm-hmm. So when you identify where they fit, you're in a much better place to do the next step, which is to turn it over to God. Because God is looking at your behavior patterns, at what's causing it, the deep-seated cause for your behavior patterns.
Opening up to God probably helped you, it probably helped you to be able to take this personal inventory of yourself.
I had to find my way back, because God didn't leave me. I had left God.
One of the biggest aspects of this is talking to your peers that are in that room.
You walk into that room and everybody is at a different level of brokenness, and the collective of people sharing in that room have a tendency to strengthen the whole. I always tell people, you know, I appreciate you all being here today. Because of you, have another day sober. You know, there's strength in those places.
I think it's important for people to understand that addiction, drug addictions and alcohol addictions particularly, are not only physical problems, they're mental and spiritual problems. And that's why you need an inventory step to identify all of these areas, not just your drinking behavior, but how did it affect you mentally? How did it affect other people mentally? How did it affect you spiritually? How did it affect other people spiritually? When you got to put all that together to find out who you are.
Such a good job of kind of explaining this process to me. And for those of y'all that are watching and here, I mentioned this last week, they have never met before until we sat down together. But they have this common bond together. That step in that process, in the 12 steps of AA, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. That's step 4 in this process. Tom mentioned while we were talking during that interview, and I circled it in my notes here, is that this is probably the most important step in the process, because you're basically gut checking yourself, right? You are humbling yourself, and you're going to talk about this more, but it's all about humility, and it's not only just with humbling yourself in what's going on and trying to take an inventory on your own life, but how they affected others around them. And this is also the step. The first 4 steps are kind of their own selves. And as Tom mentioned, this is the step before you admit to God and start to let God take over in the process. And it was, you know, for me listening, I mentioned this last week too, that I was nodding a lot during these interviews, because I'm, you know, in our own lives, just with whatever that's going on with our lives, we can understand this. We can relate to it. And it was an enlightening conversation. I'm happy to just honored that I was able to sit down with them and just go through this process.
Yeah, it's been great to hear from them, Jeremy, and it's a reminder that, you know, for any of us, this isn't something just for those who might be recovering from an addiction. This is a message for all of us about how to deal with those things that are holding us back in order that we can break free from them. So thank you for pulling out those stories from Tom and John.
Absolutely.
And so now we're going to move to the children's story, and from what I hear, friends, today's children's story, don't be tuning out for this because I hear it might be a little PG-13. And so you might want to hold on to your chairs for this one. Let's put our hands together. Let's welcome Miss Julie and the kids for the children's story today.
Hello.
Hi, Sandy.
Hi, Sandy.
Today, we are going to be talking about the big F word.
Why would you have a curse word on the children's story?
It's failure.
Like,
So, do you guys know what the word failure means?
it means when you don't succeed at something. Yeah, it's the opposite of succeeding.
Do something wrong?
Say like you're doing homework and you don't do it right.
In the dictionary, failure means not to succeed at something. I'm sure that you have all failed in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have failed in Minecraft Dungeons.
This one time in third grade, where I got an F in social studies.
I did something wrong and I failed.
Sometimes I lose at a game of soccer.
Me too.
When you fail at something, how does it make you feel?
Bad.
Disappointed in myself.
Exhausted, maybe?
If I ask a question, I'm gonna look stupid.
I'll act really hard on myself.
Very, very, very sad.
Anybody else? Do you think that God thinks that you are a failure?
Think about this for a second. God created the world. God created the people. If we fail to do his task, he probably takes remorse on us and thinks that he's a failure.
When you fail, you don't actually fail to God, because just by making a mistake, you're not a failure.
I don't think he thinks you're a failure. It's just he kind of feels like, have I done something wrong or have they done something wrong?
Because he loves us. So if he loves us, he probably wouldn't think we're a failure.
God sees value and beauty in everybody, even if we don't feel that way about ourselves. And sometimes we feel like a failure, or maybe we look at somebody else and we feel like they are a failure. But God is so big and so amazing that God will take our failures and turn them into something good. Let's bow our heads.
Dear God, thank you for this day. Thank you for this life.
Thank you for my family. Thank you for letting us do this.
I pray that my Alma doesn't need to have surgery.
I pray for all the homeless people and people who are sick with coronavirus.
But these prayers really mean something, Lord, and that we need strength to be able to pick ourselves back up again and to just keep going through it until eventually it stops. Amen.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
See you Sunday.
Yeah, it definitely got my attention at the beginning of that children's story. That's great. Thank you. Thank you to the kids. So a good friend of mine recently shared with me this TikTok video. And yeah, I know. I just lost all credibility in that one moment. But hang with me here for a few seconds here. So while TikTok's 60-second video clip platform isn't really known for producing inspirational, transformative moments, that's exactly how this video impacted me. So it was this person, and he was talking about the business that he runs and how one day in the staff meeting, he asked the question, what went well this week because of you? Now, that seems simple enough, right? But it's how the staff responded that was so surprising. He said it was heartbreaking how so many of them couldn't answer the question. How so many began to break down in tears, sitting there silent. They had never considered their contributions to the company's overall goal in this way before. They never reflected on how much their work actually matters to the success of the company. He said he couldn't comprehend the deep hurt and the loneliness and the ongoing pain that must have existed behind those tears. In this one question, everyone was placed in a position of taking inventory. Inventory of their level of engagement with their work, inventory of how they treated each other on the staff, inventory of their commitment to their own self-development, their own sense of worth. But I don't think, friends, that this idea of taking inventory is only just for the workplace. I also don't think it's just for Tom and John's case, right? The process of recovery. I wonder how many of us have ever taken time to do this same thing on a personal level. As we're working our way through this Lent series, Breaking Free, we're assessing the areas in our lives that need healing. We're dealing with those things that have become like heavy chains in our lives, binding us and holding us back. And so, as we said, we're working our way towards the empty tomb, right? We're going to celebrate on Easter the fact that Jesus is alive. But we're also working towards this opportunity that we have to be able to boldly and confidently say for ourselves, I am alive too. Because of Jesus, I have broken free. So last week we talked about powerlessness, our need to surrender. And today we're looking at the challenges of humility and the blessings that come when we allow ourselves to be humble. Today is all about taking an honest look at ourselves, taking inventory of all that we are, every element that we love to keep hidden in the shadows. But our hope for the day is that while, yes, this is challenging work, while, yes, it might cause us to beat our chest, it might cause us to go to tears crying out to the Lord, forgive me, that this will be a major step that we don't skip. In fact, it is necessary if we truly want to encounter resurrection and new life.
take brokenness aside and make it beautiful.
Good morning, Peace Church. Good morning, and good morning, Jim.
It's good to see you, Julie.
Yes, thank you. Today, we're going to hear from one of Jesus's parables in the book of Luke. That's our scripture reading today.
Right. It comes out of chapter 18. And right before what we're going to read, there was all this talk happening about the coming kingdom and the revelation of the Son of Man and the mysterious way in which all of this would come about.
Right. And while chapter 17 ends with a feeling of doom and gloom, chapter 18 is on a happier tone.
That's right. The parable we're going to read, it's all about God's blessings, right? And it seems like a warning, but Jesus' words really are an illustration to us of how to position ourselves to receive God's grace, to find that new life. And so we're going to read out of Luke chapter 18, verses 9 to 14, and let's welcome Cheryl Rose to read for us our scripture lesson this morning.
Luke 18, 19 through 14. Jesus also told this parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and regarded others with contempt. 2 men went to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee, the other a tax collector. The Pharisee, standing by himself, was praying thus, God, I thank you that I am not like other people, thieves, rogues, adulterers, and even this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give 1/10 of my income. But the tax collector, standing far off, would not even look up to heaven. He was beating his breast and saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went to his home justified rather than the other. For all who exalt themselves will be humbled, and all who humble themselves will be exalted.
It's pretty clear here that humility is what this is all about.
Right. We want to take the Pharisee and the tax collector, right, and say, here's the bad example, and here's the good example.
Right. Isn't that the point of a parable?
Well, maybe, right? Maybe. But when it comes to humility, think about this. If we jump too quickly to judging the Pharisee, aren't we really kind of saying the same thing he was? I'm glad I'm not like that guy.
Right. So what are we supposed to do if we don't contrast them?
Well, instead of contrasting them right out of the gate, what if we compared them first? I mean, if we look at it, both of them were, I guess we could say, struggling in the public opinion department, right?
Right. So the Pharisee would be hypocritical in their faith, right? And then the tax collectors, they were known for manipulating people and taking their money.
Right. But both of these individuals go to the temple to pray. I mean, if we think about it, both of them are looking for some sort of redemption in the Lord.
Yeah, but the Pharisee was obviously way too focused on himself compared to the tax collector.
True, right? The Pharisee's prayer of gratitude really wasn't focused on God, but the tax collector's prayer was. But the tax collector isn't perfect here.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, he says all the right things, right? He's sincere, but if we notice, he never actually commits to changing his ways.
Well, what are we supposed to do with the parable then?
Well, maybe we look at their posture for that answer. So the Pharisee, Luke tells us, is standing. And that makes sense, right? That was the traditional way to pray back then. The person would stand with their arms outstretched toward heaven, right? But this Pharisee's got like a sense of entitlement to him. He's got this assumed righteousness in his posture.
Okay, I see. And while Luke tells us that the tax collector is standing, he wasn't even looking to heaven.
Right, the tax collector's got his head held low, right? He's beating his chest. And so this is all about this posture of humility. And so, we can all look towards this as an example for how to receive these blessings from God, to place ourselves in a position of unworthiness, to kind of see ourselves of receiving that blessing through any kind of through lacking on our part, not through anything that we do, right? And so really this theme of the posture of humility, it's all through chapter 18. So you see this widow who, from a position of powerlessness, actually puts an unjust judge in his place. Then Jesus is teaching about how to receive new life like children, being weak and dependent.
Right, and then the rich ruler is told by Jesus to sell everything he owns and give all his money to the poor in order to find treasures in heaven.
Exactly, and then it finishes with Jesus telling the disciples that they're going to need to leave everything, their family, their children even, to find the kingdom of God. And so the real point in this whole thing is this posture of humility. That's what leads to finding blessings in God. And so if we want to experience resurrection, if we want to find new life, the first thing we've got to do is take all of our faults, all of our failures, all of the shameful aspects about ourselves that we don't want to admit, and we need to shove those right into the tomb.
Yes. And one of those ways that we can put ourselves in a posture of humility is through prayer. And so Jonathan is going to lead us in prayer today and also then continue on with our special music called Valleys. And in order to continue the ministry, as always, we encourage you to give of your tithes and offerings. And one of the ways you can do that is by clicking on the QR code on the screen, and it'll take you directly to our offering page. And so let's bow our heads in prayer as Jonathan leads us.
Let's pray. God, righteous judge, you know good from evil, for all that you created was good. And you know us, and you know that we are not good. You know that we lie. You know that we try to trick you. You know that we deceive ourselves. You know that we rebel and we fight and we go after what we want rather than what is right and what is good. And you love us just the same. So God, teach us to see ourselves, teach us to stop lying to ourselves. Teach us, God, to know the truth about who we are and who you are. That in that truth you can heal, and in that truth you can grow us, and you can make us into what you created us to be. For in your loving, holy name we pray. Amen.
Lying at the bottom, I can clearly see the top. Pressed against this firm foundation, I count none of this as loss. As I struggle up this mountain with every bloody knee, you know I'm often prone to stumble, but it's this rock that catches me. It's this rock that tells me that's what valleys are for. It's from here that we measure just how far we must go. You don't know how tall you stand until you fall. Mountains cast a shadow, at times it's hard to tell. Will the darkness overtake you? Will you succeed or fail? I have climbed 100 mountains and stood upon their peaks, but I still find my greatest comfort from the rocks that lie beneath. It's this rock that tells me that's what valleys are for. It's from here that we measure just how far we must go. It's this rock that tells me that's what valleys are for. It's from here that we measure just how far we must go. You don't know how tall you stand until you fall. That's what valleys are for. That's what valleys are for.
You know, I love Brene Brown as much as the next person, but it's a shame because the word authenticity, something that she's very well known for teaching about, has almost become like this Christian buzzword in the past few years. In some ways, it's kind of lost its impact or it's become watered down. But words like authenticity and vulnerability and humility, these are at the core of how we encounter God. God uses our humility as the doorway to enter into our lives. I want to say that again because I want to make sure we all hear that. God uses our humility. That's the first step, as the doorway to enter into our lives. It's the cornerstone of God's love. I mean, think about this for a second. The whole life of Jesus is the ultimate example of humility, the humility of God. Yet it's like we've come to think that becoming humble, that's the end goal, when really, that's the means through which God achieves the real goal in our lives, which is transformation, new life. That's why humility is key when it comes to taking an inventory of ourselves, or what we could call gaining self-awareness. Everybody say, I want self-awareness. In fact, why don't you just look at somebody around you. If you're watching at home, look at somebody you're watching and say, I need some self-awareness. And the other person's going, I'm ready to give it to you. No. Professor of psychology, Tara Wells, says, people often grossly overestimate their level of self-awareness. Her point is that most of us feel like we know and understand ourselves much better than we actually do. It's natural for us to avoid or neglect or suppress into the shadows all of those voices, all of the influences from throughout our lives that have negatively shaped who we are today. We keep it all locked away in these shadows deep in our heart. But our shadow selves aren't necessarily evil. These are just things that we don't want to face. These are things about us that we don't want to admit. Therefore, humility is critical to our healing. The recovery program of AA says that the starting point for any kind of journey toward recovery, toward healing, toward what we're calling new life is not worthiness. Am I worthy of this blessing? No, it starts with unworthiness. This process in AA explains that to take this inventory correctly in becoming self-aware, it requires us to be, as Jeremy said, fiercely honest with ourselves. To do what some call, with those shadows, to do some shadow boxing with these things that lurk in the depths of our hearts. We need to fight through all of these insecurities. We need to face and wrestle with all of these fears that we keep hidden away to bring those things in the shadows into light. There's this great quote from Jesus, a quote that would be perfect in any self-help book found today. He asks, why do you see the speck in your neighbor's eye, but you don't notice the log in your own? So the name of the game here is letting light into these shadows. Because once we begin to see things clearly, once we begin to gain some more self-awareness, friends, it's game over for all of those negative voices in our heads. So I have a feeling I know what you're probably sitting there thinking. That's all great, Jim. Sounds wonderful, but how are we supposed to do that? And I'm really glad that you asked. So let's look at that this morning. Because stepping into the sanctuary, right? Standing in the middle of this room, pounding our chest and crying out, "Have mercy on me, Lord, a sinner," that's probably not the most realistic expectation. Am I right about that? In fact, it would probably be a little weird if one of us were to do it. It would probably scare some people, I'm guessing, right? So one of the things that Tom said that was so impactful on his experience of recovery was taking time to write out a list of regrets. You remember when he said that? And really what that is, it's the practice of journaling. Taking time to write out all of the things that we feel guilt over, the mistakes that we've made, the things that we're ashamed of. The point is we write it out because as we do so, it begins that process of bringing those things out of the shadow and bringing them into the light. But I also read this one thing recently along those same lines where someone said it's also important to try writing out your own eulogy. That sounds horribly depressing, doesn't it? But the intention here is to put into words how we want to be remembered. Follow me. In a way, in doing that, we're setting up some personal goals in place. And then what we're beginning to do is we're beginning to compare this list of regrets with the intention for how we want to live our life now. And we're considering, as John said, what's lurking in the background of all of this? What are those things that's keeping this from becoming a reality? And so the first thing we should do in trying to gain awareness is grab a pen, grab some paper, and start writing. Make a list of your regrets. Maybe write a story, I don't know. But also write a eulogy. But taking inventory, it's not just a one-time thing, right? It's an ongoing activity. So being present in the moment, wherever we are, that can lead to better self-understanding too. And we can do this through learning how to say what instead of why. Let's try that now. Everybody say what. We say what instead of why. When we're considering our current state, when we're looking at maybe the environment that we're in even, how often do we begin with why? Why is this happening to me? Why did my boss give me that feedback? Why aren't things going the way that I'd hoped for, the way that I planned? But do you see it? Asking why can be a pretty ineffective thing. It can be ineffective because of how wrong we might be about our answers. See, it's hard for us to be unbiased when we evaluate things around us. It's too hard for us to be completely impartial. So in some ways, asking ourselves why leads us to dwelling on the negative, right? It actually increases this poor view that we already have of ourselves. And so instead of asking why, being present in the moment means we ask what. If we're frustrated, what are the circumstances that are making me feel this way right now? If we're experiencing a loss of control, what are the things that I have control over at this moment? See, what questions are way more productive in nature. They cast light. They help us see all of those regrettable things from the past through this lens of looking forward. There's this great quote from the world-renowned speaker Baylor Barbie. He says, "I don't care who you were, I care who you are. And I'm more concerned with who you're working to become." And so asking what gets us moving in that direction. And so finally, we have to become better listeners. Everybody hear me on that one? Better listeners. One of the most challenging ways of taking inventory, get this, is to ask someone else for insight on us. This is the hard part. Getting together with a trusted person and asking them to reflect back to you areas in your life that could use a little attention. When we do that, that allows light to begin to come into the shadows. But here's why I say we have to be better listeners. Because in doing that, it means we have to set aside our pride, our defensiveness, the feelings of judgment that we know will begin to arise when we hear what that person has to say. We have to really be able to hear how other people encounter us, the ways that others perceive us, how the words that we say and our actions impact those around us. Friends, receiving these different perspectives of who people think we are, that's a surefire way of seeing a more fiercely honest picture of who we really are. And so my prayer is that this week, all of us, us here, us at home, that will do 1, 2, maybe all 3 of those things. We'll write a list of regrets along with a eulogy. We'll start asking what questions instead of why. And we'll take time to sit down and have a fierce, honest conversation with a trusted friend. Because before we can ever receive the gift of new life, before we can find healing, we have to place ourselves in a posture of humility. That's a must. You know, that's what this whole season of Lent really is all about. It's recognizing and acknowledging that we have a need for Christ. And I had this fascinating experience this year on Ash Wednesday with this idea of humility. Now, Ash Wednesday, as most of you know, is the day that Lent officially begins. And the reason we do that thing that some might consider kind of strange, where we put ash in the sign of a cross on our forehead, it's really grounded in this idea of humility. See, the word humbled comes from the Greek word humus, and it means dirt. The ash actually represents this idea of dirt, of dust, that from dust we were formed and to dust we will return. So it's all about this idea of repentance, of saying, "Have mercy on me, Lord, a sinner," just like the tax collector did. And I got to tell you, from the pastor's perspective, I can't tell you how humbling it is every year to have the honor of standing there as everyone comes forward and placing the ash on people's foreheads. That's an intimate moment. That's a sacred moment. But if I'm being honest with you all, this year was kind of strange. It was a strange year. As you know, this year at our drive-through Ash Wednesday service, it included us handing out these little cups of ash for people to put on their own forehead. You know, I got it. We were trying to socially distance. Is everybody with me on that one? We were trying to be safe. But come on, it was weird. It was different. But I got to tell you, you know what almost every person did when they put the ash on their forehead? They looked into the mirror. It was wild to watch. Now, some of them would just do it quickly, right? They just check to make sure that they actually got the ash from the cup onto their forehead. But others took time with this, looking into the mirror, carefully crafting the perfect cross, not too light on one side, making sure the ash was equally distributed throughout the entire sign of the cross all the way through. I hope you're getting the image. There was such careful consideration given to the application of the ashes onto the forehead. And so a question started coming up in my mind. Every time I'd hand that little cup to a person and they would immediately turn to the rearview mirror, or they pull down the visor to look at the mirror that was behind there. And the question was, how many of us take the time? How many of us take as much careful consideration to the reasons for why we needed those ashes in the first place? Friends, that's the point of all this. That's why we must take inventory. I love how Howard Thurman put it. He writes this: the aliveness of life and the power of God move through the same channel at the point of greatest need and awareness. And so this week, may we choose a posture of humility. May we take time to become more self-aware, all in an effort to encounter resurrection, to find new life. Amen.
Church, we're going to close in worship. Would you stand if you're here in the room with us? And if you're online, we invite you to worship with us in whatever feels comfortable. But as we go through this song called Build My Life, I just want to encourage you to begin taking a mental inventory of your own life, of those places and spaces that you keep in the shadows. And the ways in which when we choose to bring those to light, to empty out those closets and to begin building our lives on Jesus, how much more free we can be. The joy and the healing and the peace that we can experience. So let's worship together.
Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Live for you. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are, and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me.
Worthy of every song.
Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save.
You know, I'm super excited to engage in the message with you today, Gabe. I just always feel like you have something really great to say. But before I ask your opinion, we did have some really good feedback on our Facebook feed. And one of the things that somebody mentioned was that it involves really raw vulnerability, and that was Mary. And then Anna mentioned that a lot of times we don't even know why we're going through what we're going through. Did anything resonate with you?
Yeah, I think it's striking to me, something that kept standing out is just how appropriate this set of messages are for just like the season that I've been walking through.
Yeah.
This idea of humility. And it's really just this relinquishing of control. I think that's something that we've talked about a lot is, you know, as human beings, we have this tendency to want to grasp to anything that we can control. And a lot of times those dark places, those closets where we hide things away, being able to control the fact that there is no light there, that we can keep them in the shadows, there's some sort of like comfort in that. But I think when we recognize that God sees those places, and that, you know, when we separate God from our worldly understanding of relationships and love, and that when God invades those spaces, he's not interested in condemning us, he's not interested in using that against us, he's interested in clearing that out with us. But it's this partnership that I think that we are afraid of, you know, because it's really, really difficult. And I don't mean to go on too long, but
that's great.
Like I have been in full-time ministry for a good part of my life, and there have been a lot of really wonderful things, but there have been a lot of things in my own closet that have affected the way that I have lived out my life. And that concept of humility, of saying, like, especially within the context of ministry, I don't have to be perfect. Mm-hmm. I can confront those same areas that are causing me struggle and difficulty. And I have to do that in order to find the fullness of healing and freedom from those things.
Absolutely. You reminded me of a situation that happened very recently, actually. I was boo-hooing. This is happening, boo-hoo, this is happening, blah, blah, blah. And at the end, I was sharing with a friend, and at the end, I looked at my friend and I said, well, you know, what do you think? And they paused a moment and they said, well, honestly, it sounds to me like you just don't like to be told what to do. And I sat there for a minute, and it was really it took me back, and I thought, you know, I really need to listen to that, because this is somebody I respect and trust, and they said it in a loving way, but sometimes that's really hard to do as well, you know, to just give up and be humble and go on with that. But it was a really great message, and I do hope that people take advantage of some of the activities that we have coming out on social media that will help draw us closer to this season of Lent. And then also want to remind you that you can watch the full-length interview with John and Tom this week. It'll be on our website. You can check it out there. But with that, I want to end inviting Pastor Jim back to the forefront and close us out in prayer this morning.
Let's go ahead and stand for those of you who are in the room, and just for fun, those of you at home watching, why don't you go ahead and just stand up as well. Let's join together in a posture of prayer. Pray with me, please. Heavenly and gracious God, we lay ourselves before you now, asking that in the coming hours, days, and weeks, you help us to begin to shed some light onto those things that we've put into the shadows of our hearts. Encourage us and inspire us, Lord, to want to do a little shadow boxing. And so help us, God, to gain awareness for what those things are through the journaling and the writing that we'll do. Through the questions of what that we will ask ourselves in any circumstance. And through sitting down with someone that we trust and feel safe with, to be able to hear a reflection of how others encounter us. All in an effort to begin to bring those things out of the shadows and into light. But also, Lord, help us to realize that this isn't about us. For we look at our world and we see tremendous need. And we know that in our broken world, you are alive and well, and you are working through us to bring healing and restoration into the community and the world around us. And so bring us healing so that then we can go out and bring others healing. And so help us, Lord, to carry this message into the world, into the community, even into our homes. May we go now in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you for being in worship with us, everyone. We hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you so much for being here.
It has been wonderful to be in worship with you this morning. We hope that you have a beautiful week. And remember, we have a couple of things coming up. Those Easter lilies, go to pcumcgiving.org to donate towards one for Easter. You even get to bring it home. We also have our new member class coming up on March 14th. And you can find out more at comefindpeace.org. And every day during this season of Lent, we are doing our Breaking Free social media reflections. So check out Facebook or Instagram and reflect and connect throughout this week. Hope that you have a great week, everybody.